Well, welcome to the Gateway Mission podcast. Yes, I am a different voice today than your typical Steve Rusticus, who normally hosts this podcast. I'm guest hosting today, and my name is Rachael Neal, and I'm the development director here at Gateway Mission. And I am super excited to do the next in our series of podcasts, an episode called Where Are They Now? And when we started this podcast, we really, one of our desires was we really wanted to have former graduates or people who had experienced the services and the ministry at Gateway Mission to come on and give us an update on where they are. And so today I have my friend Rob Groenwold here with me, and Rob has agreed to kind of give us an update on not only where is he now, but how was your journey at, I guess at the time, Holland Rescue Mission, now Gateway Mission, influential in that journey? So yes, when Rob was here with his wife, Sharon, it was Holland Rescue Mission. So Rob has already said, hey, I may make the mistake of saying Holland Rescue Mission. Yeah, and that's okay. So Rob, will you just tell our listeners a little bit about yourself? We've already said your name, but who are you? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
I grew up in Kalamazoo, Michigan. I was born actually in the Netherlands.
So you were?
Yes. So now that I'm in Holland, I feel like I'm home.
I did not know that.
Yes, I was 10 months old when we came here.
Wow, that's awesome.
So, and last time I was back, I was 13, I think. So
okay.
It was a little while ago. But
so you're 100% Dutch.
100%. My parents were born and raised there. My sister was born there.
Okay.
And we moved here when I was 10 months old.
Wow.
So I remember it vividly.
Okay.
Not really at 10 months old.
It was a long journey for you.
It was a long journey. So, okay. But yeah, I grew up in the church. Mm-hmm. So as a Christian Reformed. Mm-hmm. And so it was a great life. Growing up, I grew up in the church, went to Christian schools until 9th grade. Then I went to Kalamazoo Central and graduated there.
Okay.
My kids like to think that I went to school with Derek Jeter, but he was much younger than me. And
oh, really?
I didn't. We went to the same school, but not at the same time.
Okay.
But I remember as they were growing up, whenever we passed, it's like, there's your school with Derek Jeter. It's like, no, not quite.
Not quite. So when did you meet Sharon? Oh, shoot.
Okay. Okay.
Hopefully they can.
If not, oh well.
We're too still. So when did you meet Sharon?
We met on a blind date, and back in 1988, and I knew the day I met her that she was the one. We met in the parking lot of Red Lobster in Kalamazoo.
Love at first sight at Red Lobster.
Love at first sight at Red Lobster. And I proposed 6 weeks later.
You did?
I did. I actually bought the ring 2 weeks after I met her.
Oh,
but I waited 6 weeks. So, and now we've been married 32 years. October will be 33 years.
That's awesome. Congratulations.
So,
and how many kids do you have?
We have 4 kids, 3 girls and a boy. All 3 girls are married. The boy is not.
Okay.
Our son is not, although we are looking for him.
You're looking for him?
We're looking for him.
Okay.
And we just had our first grandchild a month ago today. So.
Oh, that's wonderful. So you've entered grandparenthood.
Yep. I am Opa.
You are Opa. I love that. Yep. Well, so now that we know a little bit about you, at least personally, I would love for you to share a little bit about what brought you to Holland Rescue Mission when you came to us. Do you remember the year that you were here?
It was September of 2013.
Okay. So coming up on 9 years ago.
Yep.
Does it feel like that long?
It doesn't. It went by fast.
Yeah. Share a little bit about your journey leading up to coming to the mission.
So I was raised in a home that my parents always had alcohol in the house, but I never ever saw them drunk.
Okay.
So it was always a nightcap here and there. And so I want to emphasize that in no way, shape, or form did they really have anything to do with me becoming the person the way I was.
Sure.
But I remember having my first alcoholic drink when I was 14 years old.
Oh, wow.
They allowed me to.
In your home?
At my home.
Okay.
And so then it was just here and there. And I remember it was rum and Coke. And it was, of course, more Coke than maybe a little splash of rum. And that was it.
Was it a taste or a full drink?
I think that was just a taste.
Okay.
For me, it was just one of the adult things to do. And,
sure. Okay.
And so it was never a big deal. And then it was only maybe now and then they would allow me to have one, but not very often. Mm-hmm. But then as I grew up and went to high school, once I got into the public school system and got away from my Christian friends and stuff, it became more of a, let's go to a party, got involved. I was on the swim team, and the swimmers is like, we're going to have a party at my house. And the parents always knew we were drinking and stuff. And it was always, if you're driving, we got couch, stay, you're not going home. That's it.
So parents were supportive.
Parents were supportive. My parents were always supportive. So it wasn't a big deal.
Yeah.
That wasn't a big deal. But then when I graduated high school in 1981, I moved to Grand Rapids to go to ITT Tech.
Okay.
And I wasn't of age yet, but my roommates, of course, were. And then it was a lot of binge drinking.
Okay.
And it was always take it or leave it for me. And that's the way it was for a long, long time. So from 14 up until I can't even tell you how old.
Okay.
But once I met Sharon, it was an occasional drink again, like maybe family parties, family reunion when I was home. And when we got married, started out never having it in the house. It was only when we went to visit my parents, we might have a nightcap, but that was it.
Okay.
And never anything. But then after a while, after a year or two, I asked Sharon if I could bring it in the house, and she was okay with it, because then it was only a nightcap. Sure. We call it boedeltiet. It was like a nightcap.
Is that a Dutch?
It was a Dutch thing. Yep.
Okay. Yep. I haven't heard that phrase before. Yep. Okay.
And so then she actually made a comment at one point. I can't tell you how much longer it was, but it's like, how come there's more whiskey going? By this time it was whiskey and usually 7-Up. How come there's more whiskey going in the cup than 7-Up? It's like, it's not a big deal. Not a big deal.
Yeah.
But it was always still take it or leave it, but I was still drinking to get drunk.
Okay. And did that change at a certain point?
And I can't even tell you when it changed. It was such a gradual thing.
That's what I was asking, because I feel like there's been the seasons of time throughout, Christian circles where any alcohol at all was very taboo, and it's more widely accepted now. And I'm always curious, when does it go from I'm drinking casually and enjoying this drink, and that's part of my freedom as a believer to do that, to now I'm doing it with the intent to get drunk and to cope with something, or just to get drunk.
It took me a long time to realize I was trying to cope with something.
Okay.
It was long into our marriage that it was, I realized it's like, well, it came to, I want to have a drink, I need to have a drink. And then it got to the point that we built our own house in Otsego, Michigan.
Okay.
When we got married, we moved to Otsego, and we were going to Otsego Baptist then. And so it was still take it or leave it. But once we built the house, I had my garage, I had my shop, and I was doing other things on the side. Sharon was able to be a stay-at-home mom. I was making a good living as a meat cutter then. But then I was instead of buying a fifth alcohol, I would buy a half gallon. Okay. So I would have more in the house. Yeah. And then I would find reasons to go out to my shop, because then I always had a bottle hidden out there. Okay. And I could have more. And we wound up losing that house to foreclosure, because I was spending my money. We were basically keeping up with the Joneses. Okay. Spending money. It's like somebody else got a new car, we had to get a new car. After a while, we got foreclosed on. So then I think I started drinking more then, but it wasn't until probably 5 or 6 years before we came to the mission So before 2013, I'm just throwing out some dates.
Rough estimate, yeah.
That now I have to have a drink in the morning before I go to work.
Oh, okay.
Because I was starting to have some withdrawals because I haven't had anything since last night.
Okay.
So then I would have the drink and then I'd go to work and I'd be fine. But then I had to have something when I came home. Eventually, I was working at Meijer and I lost my job after 22 years. I lost my job there because of attendance. And it wasn't I was missing work. I was constantly late because things happening at home.
Okay.
Stressing. By this time we had lost our home. Different points we lived in somebody's basement. We lived in hotels. We were able to stay in an apartment for about 7 years before we got evicted from there.
Okay.
So I mean, it was a lot of different things.
Yeah.
And my sister at one point told Sharon that she should divorce me. Everybody was telling me, you need to go for treatment. So I'd go for treatment, but I always made it that was making other people happy. And then, so I'd go for a weekend treatment because at least back then you go to a treatment center, unless you were chronic, it was like a 3-day just to sober up and they'd send you on your way again. I would go to AA to make people happy. I wasn't doing it for me. I was doing it for everybody else.
Yeah.
In the meantime, we were still going to church, and at church, I was trying to hide it. Even if I had a drink before church, I would throw in a mint. I would eat a mint.
Okay.
You know, it's like people, well, we think we smell alcohol. It's like, no, you must smell the mint. You must smell the mint. And
how did you feel when they questioned you like that at church? Were you angry or?
Well, it's like, I think it was more like, how can I get away with it that they don't catch me?
Okay. So you weren't really necessarily convicted by it?
No, I wasn't. It's like the alcohol was more important. So yeah, I mean, it was part of my life.
Yeah.
And Sharon knew it, and she would find.
Was she drinking at the time?
No.
Okay.
Nope.
Okay.
There was a time that she might have like a wine cooler here and there, but you buy it back then. I assume they're still the same, but a 4-pack.
Sure.
And she would have one. I had the other 3 before she had the one done.
Okay. Yeah.
So
it was just a gradual.
It started out gradual, and then I lost my job at Meijer, and then I got a temp job at a egg factory. Hated it, but it was a job. It was a paycheck, and it still got me booze, got me my alcohol, and it still paid some bills. So it was pretty bad. It was pretty bad. And then I went from that job to another job. I was at the egg factory for about 4 months and I hated it. And but I was able to get another job that was a really good job, and it was in a label making factory.
Okay.
But it was 12-hour shifts, and I could not make it through a 12-hour shift. I would be the operator assistant, and with printing labels, you would have to mount these plates on these cylinders, and sometimes you'd have different colors, and these plates would have to roll on top of each other. So you have to mount those plates exact.
Okay. And
the only way I could do that is if I would run out to my car and have a quick drink. Because my hands would get shaky after 6 hours. The alcohol's wearing off. Well, after about 2 years, I got caught. Okay. And lost my job. Of course, I denied it. I wasn't drinking. It's like, well, we're sending you to get tested. It's like, well, I guess I'm busted. Yeah. So I lost my job there. Then it just was to the point we couldn't live off savings after a little while, and we were renting a mobile home that was right on the outskirts of it was between Otsego and Allegan. And we were going to get evicted, and that's when we found out about Holland Rescue Mission. Okay. And
how did you hear? Church or?
We needed to find some place to live. Our family was not going to take us in. We couldn't we didn't have any money for a hotel. We had nothing. Yeah. And so it was between Kalamazoo Gospel Mission and Holland Rescue Mission. Okay. And it just so happened that Kalamazoo Gospel Mission was full. They said, if
Really?
you come here, you'll have to sleep in the hallway until a room opens up.
Wow. Okay.
So we called Island Rescue Mission, and that's when we found out there was, at that time, it was called Family Hope, and then that Men's Mission.
Yep.
And they said, well, we do have a wing for married people, but that's only for people in the program.
Yeah.
So we came here, and so Sharon dropped me off at the Men's Mission, and I got to backtrack just a minute, because this would have been September 15th, 2013.
Okay.
The reason I remember that is that we were packing up our stuff to go into storage, and I finished off my last bottle knowing that once we came to the mission, I could not drink.
Wow.
So I finished off my bottle, and Sharon had gone to, our beds were probably packed up by now, because she went to go get some sleep. And I waited a few hours. I thought, okay, we have a van full of stuff. I'll wait till I sober up and I'll take stuff to storage. On the way to storage, I got pulled over for a broken headlight. Wow. It was like 1:00 in the morning. I was in eyesight of the storage unit, and I pulled into a store parking lot, and the cop said, well, I smell alcohol on you. I said, well, I had a drink a few hours ago, but I said, that was a while ago. So he said, well, can I do a sobriety test? I said, sure. I felt great. I didn't feel.
You didn't feel
like,
drunk?
No, not at all. And so he did all the tests, and he said, well, let me do the breathalyzer. And I don't remember what I blew, but it was over the limit. Wow. And we have this van full of stuff that he says, do you know anybody that you could call to come get it for you? He said, I really don't want to put you through that, because I was very cooperative with a police officer. Sure. And it's like, so I called our pastor from our church, woke him up. He came, he didn't live very far away. He came and he gave me a hug. I still have to back up again. I'm sorry. Because of my alcohol abuse, and I had been arrested one other time for a DUI, but that was many years before. But the church found out about it. I went through church discipline. I was voted out of membership from the church, but I still didn't care back then. Sure. Because alcohol was still.
Alcohol was your God, right?
My little G God, yes.
Yeah.
And so I had called him, and he came and he gave me a hug. Wow. And he took care of our car stuff. And of course, I got arrested. I was taken to Allegan County Jail.
And this is when you're getting ready to
come here.
For help.
Ready to come here.
Wow.
Not even for, I'll get into that yet. Okay. Getting someplace to live.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I got arrested, and that was an overnight stay. So I called Sharon the night when I was going to be let out. And she says, okay. She said, there's a group of guys here finishing up, packing up now, and they're going to take it to storage. And of course, she was really mad.
I
said, I'll be home or be there in a couple hours. I got to walk. So I started walking, and then our pastor showed up as I'm walking down the street, and he picked me up. Wow. And then the guys finished taking our stuff to storage, and we came here, and I very possibly could have still had a little buzz on when I came here. I don't know, possibly, but
she dropped you off at
she dropped me off at the men's mission, and she went to the women's mission, Family Hope. Okay. And so I did all the paperwork and did all that, and then we found out about the program. Like, well, otherwise we could have only stayed for so long. Yeah. So I said, okay, I guess I'll go through make people happy until we can get out of here. Right. That's all. That was my only goal, is to make people happy.
So even at that time, because that's how we operate similarly now, is emergency shelter is, today it's a 14-day stay. And then that's our open door shelter. And then if you go into, there's the pathway program, which is get a job, save your money, move out, few levels of accountability. About 4 months, but then the Gateway Addictions program is 9 months. Okay. So at the time, it was probably more like a 20-day stay, maybe.
I don't remember what it was, but we got introduced pretty quickly to the program. Okay. And back then, it was the first part of the program was 6 months, and then you could continue for another 6 months if you wanted to.
Yeah.
And so we said, well, we're just going to go for the 6-month one.
Okay.
And at this point, I'm still doing stuff to make people happy.
Okay. Keep the peace, right?
Keep the peace.
Mm-hmm.
I got to do what I got to do. I have been sober before for 6 months. I can do it again. And, probably 6 months in a day, I can have another bottle. Who knows?
Right. Yeah.
I wasn't thinking that far ahead just yet.
Long-term sobriety,
like I'm thinking
though.
right now of our family.
Yep. Okay.
So then.
And sorry to interrupt, but did you came into the shelter with all 4 of your children?
Oh, I'm sorry. We had, because of all our moving around, our oldest daughter was staying with some friends in Plainwell.
Okay.
They opened up their home to her.
Okay.
And our second oldest daughter was going to college at Grand Valley.
Okay. So you had your younger
So we had
two.
our two younger ones.
Okay.
Our son was a senior at Otsego High School.
Wow.
And our daughter was a junior in Allegan. She did want a school of choice, and she asked to go to Allegan. And we were able to work it out because of where we lived.
Yeah.
So when we decided to when we first got here for the first week or so, since the kids were with Sharon, she would just drive them to school. She'd get up early in the morning, drive them to Otsego and Plainwell.
Yeah.
And we had a little money in savings so we could handle the gas. But then when we decided to join the program, we sat down with the kids with tears because we have wonderful kids.
I've met them. You do.
And Garrett, our son, he's the best son in the world, but he has a little harder time making friends. Once he's a friend for life. Yeah. So we hated to say, you might have to come to Holland. We don't know how to get you back and forth to school, even though it's your senior year.
Yeah.
And so we went to Calvary Baptist Church one day, and the first time wasn't the best experience.
Oh, no?
But Garrett, for some reason, wasn't with us. We loved the service. Sure. We loved the singing. We loved everything. But at that point, nobody even greeted us. So things have changed.
But you're longtime members now. So
we are. So I have to be
try.
honest. So because this is how we got there. So then we went the second week because we knew there was a youth group and we wanted the kids to get involved with the youth group.
Sure.
The second week was awesome. People greeted us, and it was fantastic.
Yeah.
So
give a church, give a church a second chance.
Give them some grace.
Yeah,
so
okay.
So
well, I grew up there, so I have similar feelings.
Okay.
Yeah,
so
good church.
It really is. We're still going there.
Yeah.
So, but so when we decided to join the program, we were actually on the way to church. I think we were taking the kids to youth group. And we had prayed about it. It's like, Lord, we really want to keep them in their schools, but we don't know how to do it. Yeah. And we had been in contact with the school. It's like, what can we do with transportation? And it's like, we don't know what to do. And on the way to church, got a phone call. And, hi, my name's Ryan. I am a teacher at Allegan. I will be picking your kids up for school in the morning.
That's great.
And they had it arranged for this teacher lived in Holland. And so he taught in Allegan. He would so Brittany went to Allegan. Garrett was going to the tech center. So he'd get a ride to the tech center from Allegan. From tech center, he went to finish off school in Otsego, and they allowed him to leave a little early to catch a bus back to Allegan. Okay. And then he had to ride back home with that same teacher.
That's awesome.
And then it turned out that he was a coach for, I believe, basketball. So he said, we're going to have an issue there. There was a second teacher that took over.
That's great.
And then once we got in the mission, we met other people, and a guy that's a volunteer at the men's mission quite often, Gary. Yeah. I befriended him because my workstation back then was in the kitchen. Okay. And he came, he said, let me go pick Brittany up. She was in sports. She had practice today. Let me go get her for you. Yeah. And so God just worked everything out.
Your kids really found a community. I mean, I think that's heartbreaking to hear. I'm sure as a dad, it was heartbreaking to tell your kids, junior and senior year, we're moving into a shelter.
We were in tears.
Yeah.
I was in tears because it was my fault.
Yeah. Yeah.
I took all the blame because it was all my fault.
Right. So when you got to the mission and you joined the program, I mean, you said initially, I thought 6 months in a day, and then I can have another bottle.
Yep.
So how long before the Lord started to work in your heart and reveal, hey, this is going to be longer than 6 months in a day?
Well, so my last drink, so I say my sobriety day is September 15th, 2013.
Okay.
That was my last drink.
Yeah. Ever? Okay.
So
praise God.
And I just remember having strong urges. It's like, I want to go out. I just want to go out and have it. And there was enough freedom that I could probably, I know I could have gone out and got something, but if you get caught, that's it. You're out.
Yeah.
At least back then.
Yeah.
I assume if you're in the program, it might be the same way now. But
we take sobriety very seriously for good reason.
So I remember texting somebody, I just want to drink. And then the urge went away that time. But then later on, it's like, I can't do this by myself. I just can't. And so I can't give you a date. It had to be sometime in October, but I just gave it to God. I said, I can't do it.
Yeah.
And I haven't had urge since.
That's amazing.
Now there's a difference between urge and I would love to go out have a beer with, Rachael.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you drink, but I'd love to just go out and have, go out by the lake and have a beer. Well, no, I can't.
Right. But don't you think it's, I think it's pretty incredible that God reveals that to some of us. I mean, we were talking before we started recording that, addiction doesn't just have to be to a substance. I mean, people are addicted to all kinds of things.
Oh, yeah.
And to understand our limits in the freedom that Christ gives us. I mean, there are believers who can go out and have a beer at the lake. And I believe that they can do that and not dishonor God. But there are those that say, I can't, and I know myself and I know my limits and I can't do that. And God was gracious to bring that revelation to you, right? Pretty early on. Yeah. So then tell me so you journeyed through the program and Sharon and the kids are along for the ride, but I've talked with Sharon. I don't think that she was a passive participant in your journey through the program. I think she was pretty active and experienced some change herself. And you don't have to share her story, but
she decided right away that if I was going to do the program, that she was too. So she went through the program, although she did not have addictions. I mean, we all have our own personal
absolutely
demons. Would that be the right word?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Sin,
yeah.
Right. Like the effects of sin. I mean, we all struggle.
Yeah. And so she decided to go through, and I think it was kind of eye opening for her too, because being with women that wasn't used to.
Sure.
So she grew up in a very not strict home, but in a small town.
Sure.
Yeah, everybody knew everybody's business, and everybody knew where Sharon came from. She
yeah.
So yeah, she decided to join the program too. And from what I remember, we were the first married couple to actually graduate the program.
I believe so. Yeah.
So that was.
Yeah. So did you graduate a year later then?
Yep.
And that would have been around September 2014.
2014.
Okay.
But by that time we had established ourselves, and we didn't. I don't think we were. They didn't really know what to do with us as a married couple.
Sure.
I don't think.
Yeah.
To keep going through the program.
Right.
Right. So we were up in the wing for quite a while, actually.
Okay.
And once we graduated after a year, they said, well, you can move out. And I don't remember who I went to, but I went to staff and I said, I don't think I'm ready.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't think I'm ready to go out in the world, because I knew where I was before.
Sure.
And I said, can we stay? I said, can we get into transitional housing? And there were the apartments there, and we had to wait a little while yet for an apartment.
Yeah.
And I was so glad we were able to do that. And that was such a blessing because we had a garage there that I set a shop in.
Nice.
And well, it was nice, but it also kind of, I don't know if it was really PSTD or what PTSD.
Yeah.
But going in the garage and I had set up a workbench and everything. It's like, wow. You know, this is what I used to do. I used to go in the shop to do stuff so I could drink.
And I don't know how to do this without alcohol, right? It's like, so I think that is sometimes maybe the hidden journey that some people who go through our program and also other programs that other people don't realize is that you do have to relearn to do things differently without alcohol. When alcohol has been such a presence in your life, I hear others, I've had friends that are sober tell me, you know, I had to learn how to socialize differently. All the people that I hung out with, they wanted to drink, or, you know, we go to events and you get a beer, or, you know, it seemed like when I got sober, this is a friend, alcohol was everywhere, and I had to relearn how to do my life differently.
See, I didn't have that so much except with family, and then family, like when I would go home, my parents wouldn't have anything. It's like
they put it away.
Yeah, they didn't need it.
Right.
You know, they just so.
But you had to relearn how to do the garage.
That was a biggie. That was the biggest thing for me right there.
So then, what was it like transitioning when you got a job then after coming to the mission and getting sober? Because one of the things that you mentioned was you didn't realize that you were drinking to cope, but that was kind of part of your experience in the program and what God revealed to you. What were you coping with? Was it just stress, or?
I don't know, really. I mean, at a point, you know, once you're homeless, now that's a whole different ball game, because now it's like, oh, how am I going to pay the electric bill? How am I going to get groceries for my family? How am I going to do this? And but I always had money for the alcohol.
Yeah. Interesting. So, that's interesting.
Yeah. Somehow I always found money for that.
Yeah. Well, we find money for what we prioritize, right?
Yep.
So then you graduate, you move into transitional housing, you get a job, you're an active member of a church. Fast forward to today. What's going on with Rob and Sharon and your kids today?
Well, just a month ago, we became grandparents, opened Oma. So we're excited about that.
That's awesome.
It's fun. It's expensive.
It's expensive.
Sharon likes to go buy new clothes and look what I found for the baby. It's like, but wait.
Is it a boy or a girl?
Little boy.
Little boy. And the name is?
Elliot Tate.
Elliot Tate. Oh, I love that.
So that's fun.
Yeah.
We haven't seen them a lot. We've been kind of staying back a little bit.
Yeah.
So we give them their space.
Yeah.
Because, you know, of course, grandparents and friends and everybody else wants to come. So
it's a lot of excitement for a new set of parents, right?
Yep.
Well, that's awesome.
So that's great. But I'm working in maintenance / janitorial at Shoreline Container.
Awesome.
I'm loving it.
Okay.
I started my own little thing with deer processing come deer season. So I enjoy doing that.
Okay.
Sharon since this is going to be sent out later, she just found out today that they offered her a job where she was a temp in the office where I work.
That's great.
So she's excited about that.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome.
So, but through the mission, we were able to save up enough money to get a house. We were able to connect with the other people, the other churches too, to learn different programs through the government. We were able to get to a house. So we're loving that.
That's great. How important has community been to your continued, I don't want to say success in life, because I know that you would give the glory to God for the transformation that you've experienced. And I do want you to speak to that a little bit more, because I know that your relationship with the Lord is the driving force in keeping your marriage together and really allowing you to move forward the way that you've been able to. But how important has your church community been?
Oh, it's been fantastic. When we went that night for the first night to take the kids to the youth group, Pastor Paul Davis.
Mm-hmm.
We had just basically met that morning.
Okay.
And we walked in, we dropped the kids off at the youth hall at Calvary.
Yeah.
And we walked in and we saw him. It's like, well, what time does the night service start?
Mm-hmm.
He said, well, we don't have a night service, but we have community groups. And, oh, by the way, he knew our first and last names, which was impressive.
Oh, he did?
I couldn't believe that. It's like,
That's
how do you know our first names, but last name? Come on.
Yeah.
But he said, it just so happens that we have a group downstairs. So we went downstairs and at first, we just said, well, we just moved to Holland and we live over off Lincoln.
Okay.
We didn't say where we were.
Yeah.
And we didn't really tell our story. We just moved here and we didn't say anything and nobody pried. I don't know if they knew something or what. It didn't matter. And then after a few weeks of that community group, it's like, okay, this is where we're at.
Yeah.
And they just embraced us.
That's awesome.
And prayed for us. And once we started the program, we weren't making any money. We couldn't afford insurance on the van. We couldn't afford gas. They always offered rides.
Wow.
Let's pick you up. We have something. Let us pick you up. Can you go out for dinner? We just talked to staff. It's like, can we get a pass? And we were able to get a pass to go out at night. And so we couldn't have done it without community.
Yeah. Yeah. And we hear that a lot. That's one of the things we try to communicate to our donors, that we really put a huge effort in to create community here at Gateway Mission for our guests, because so many people come in and they have no relationships with family. They've burned all those bridges. Yep. Their friends are tired or they're gone, tired of helping them. And so trying to create that community for people, but also stressing that we can't be your community for life. You've got to make that community connection outside of here.
Oh, absolutely. And you need to get to some sort of church, a Bible believing church. I mean, that's all there is to it.
Yeah.
And you can't be afraid to share.
Right.
You can't.
You got to open up. That vulnerability is what creates community and trust.
And you have to realize that everybody sins. Everybody does daily.
Yeah.
And whether it's alcohol, whether it's drugs, whether it's porn, whether it's being on your phone too long, there's everybody or whatever. I mean, there's so many things that people can be addicted to.
Yeah.
And the community helps.
Yeah.
And being able to text somebody, hey, pray for me.
Right.
I'm struggling right now.
Yeah. That accountability is huge. I mean, we all need it. We don't always want it, but we need it.
Yes.
So what would you say, Rob, to maybe the individual that's listening today that can relate to some aspect of your story? I mean, I think you're very relatable. I mean, you grew up in the church, you had wonderful parents, you fell in love, got married, had kids, were successful, and yet none of us is immune to the effects of sin in our lives and that taking hold. What would you say to the individual that's sitting in the pew on Sunday mornings and going home and drinking in their garage, and maybe they haven't lost their house yet, but they need what the mission offers?
Don't be afraid. You can't be afraid. You have to find somebody you can open up with, whether it's a good friend. You can just say, I'm struggling. I need help. You can't wait for somebody else to do it.
Yeah.
All I can say, I've had people ask me, it's like, well, my son or my uncle, or can you talk to them? They need to be sober. It's like, the only one that can do that it's between them and God. We can't do it. I can't tell somebody you have to stay sober.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can stay sober for a week, but you're going to go right back to it.
Yeah.
Unless you want to give it up.
Yeah. They have to want to do it for themselves.
Even the mission is great. The mission can't do it for you. They can help you. You have to, if you're already in the mission, ask for help. Don't be afraid. That's what they want to do. That's what these Rachel wants to do. That's what Ken wants to do. I don't know enough people.
Scott, Steve,
Scott was
Jody,
here. So you have to ask.
Yeah.
You can't be afraid.
Yeah.
If you're struggling, ask.
Yeah. Yeah. You've gotta want to, and but we're here and we're here to ride the road with people through the bumps, and it's not a straight line up. I praise God. that the day that you came to the mission was the last time you had a drink. That's not true for everyone. There are people that stumble along the way. But we want to help pick you back up. And if you want help, we're here to offer it.
Oh, absolutely. We're still in contact with a lot of people.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, I've seen some people that I went through the program with that are back to their old habits.
Yeah.
Actually, one of the first days I was staying in if they still have it at the men's mission, I was in the common area.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was reading a paper, and it had to be one of the first or second days I was there. And I was shaking. I was going through withdrawals. And I just remember hearing somebody going, "Hey," just yelling, "Hey." And it's like, oh, and I turned and looked, and it was this really large guy, bald. And it's like, oh, this is scary. And he said, "Are you okay?" I said, "No, I think I'm going through withdrawals." And he just said, "You'll be okay." And just recently, Big Daddy Weave played a concert at is it Ridge Point Church, and we went to that concert and with another couple, some friends of ours, and we're sitting there waiting for the concert, and the security guard comes up and he's talking to our friends, and I'm looking at him and he's looking at me, and he said, "I feel like I know you." I said, "I think I know you too." I said, "What's your name?" He said, "Andrew." He said, "What's yours?" "Rob." It's like, where do we know each other from? I said, "You're the guy from the mission."
Are you
and
serious?
It was him, and he was doing security. He's a truck driver now. He's doing really well. And
that is
and
cool.
It was so funny. And it's,
I love that you shared that. I love that. That's such an encouraging.
But it's like, that was the first guy that kind of talked to me. I mean, he yelled at me and it scared me to death. It's like, this is a big bald guy.
Yeah. Oh, and, that's a great story.
And we wound up working in the kitchen together. So
okay. But, well, that's great. Well, I am so thankful that you joined me today. Thanks for being the first one to share the Where Are They Now story. And I thank you as a listener for joining us and for listening to Rob's journey. You know, if you are listening today and you need help and you're not sure where to turn, I hope that you'll reach out to Gateway Mission. You can find more information on our website at hopefoundhere.org. And we will have more of these podcasts of encouragement launching in the future. So thank you, Rob, and thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.